Hello everyone, you are most welcome to this lecture. We are going to look at selecting sources under literature review. And the course facilitator is Dr. Mark Kahwa from the Faculty of Education at the Mountains of the Moon University. So we are just continuing to look at literature review. In the previous electronic videos, we looked at the general introduction of literature review. We looked at the characteristics or the features of a well-reviewed literature. We looked at the different types of information to review. And we're just now going to add on. And in this lecture, we are looking at selecting sources. So how do you select sources in literature? And as I already mentioned in the previous videos, is that if you are really to conceptualize a research problem, then you cannot avoid reviewing literature. If you are to conceptualize a research problem very well, then you have to begin by reviewing literature so that you can deeply read about that research problem, so that you can understand it very well, and then you'll be able to conceptualize it very well. So, as a researcher, you will review literature before you start even conducting research, because you want now to deeply understand the concepts that you're going to investigate. And then you will also now review literature as you start the process of writing. So literature review is very, very important in research. So we are looking at selecting sources. So before deciding whether or not to incorporate what you have found into your literature review, you need to evaluate the sources to make sure that they contain information which is valuable and pertinent. So it is very, very important, because as we review literature, you will find a lot of information on the web, on the internet. But then as a researcher, you have to filter that information so that you only review information that is relevant, you only review information that is authentic, you only review information that is first of all relevant to your research. So select literature that is relevant or that is closely related to the problem and purpose. As I've already said, you'll always find vast information on the internet, on the web. So you cannot review each and everything. So that means you have to select information that is closely related to your problem, and that will actually be able to answer the different questions that you have posed as a researcher. So in selecting sources, we put emphasis on primary sources. Now, primary sources are original research reports, and these can include journals, they can include research reports presented at a conference, they can include conference proceedings. But also you can use secondary sources, and secondary sources, these actually summarize the primary source. And these are materials written by an author who was not a direct observer or a participant in the events described. So we shall look at these in depth. We shall look at the primary sources, we shall look at the secondary sources in depth. But as you are selecting the sources, you need to evaluate the materials. You need to evaluate the online sources. Now, as you are evaluating, you have to look at the accuracy, you look at authority, you look at objectivity, you look at currency, and then you look at coverage. And under each of these aspects, you ask yourself certain questions. And it is only when these questions are answered positively, that is when you will proceed to, include such sources. If, for example, you're looking at accuracy, there are certain questions you have to ask yourself. These sources that I'm going to review, are they accurate? For example, is this information reliable? Is the information free from error? Is the information based on proven facts? Can the information be verified against other, sources? And if the answer is yes, then you'll include that source. Then 2, you have also to look at authority. First of all, you ask yourself, who is the author? Is the author an authority in this area? If, for example, it is in education, somebody has published an article in education or has published a conference proceeding in education, so yes, it is published, but is the author an authority in this area? If, for example, it is in the area of agriculture, it is in the area of health, it is in the area of business, it is in the area of forestry, and so on and so forth, is this author an authority? Does the author have the qualifications to speak or write on that topic? And that one is very, very, very important. Is the author affiliated with a reputable university or organization in this subject? So this is also very, very important, that when you look at the author, you also have to check the affiliations. Where are they based? Are they working for an organization? Are they working for an academic institution? And is that institution that they are affiliated to, is it a credible institution? Is it an accredited institution? So you all have to check all these details. Now that is authority. Then objectivity. What is the intended purpose of the information? If it is a published article, if it is a book chapter, if it is a book, if it is a conference proceeding, what is the intended purpose of this information? Does it, for example, address a community concern, a community problem, a community challenge? Is the information providing facts or just giving opinions? Because in research we are not interested in opinions. We are not interested in personal feelings. We are not interested in personal feelings. We are interested in factual information. Now, is the information biased? So, that is the question of the aspect of objectivity. Now, currency. This is also very, very important. Normally, we don't review archaic information, archaic literature, outdated literature. When was the information published? Is the information current or outdated? Does currency matter in this topic? Because depending on what you are investigating, or what research problem you are investigating, what research problem you are writing about, we always emphasize that you cite current literature. That is an aspect of currency. I will just give an example. If you are, for example, researching on the effects of COVID on academic performance, so that means the literature you are going to review, it is only that literature that was published within the period of the pandemic. You're not going to review literature of 2010, 2015, 2017, because that time we do not have COVID. So, that is what we mean when we talk of an aspect of, is the information that is published, is it current or it is outdated? Coverage. Does the information cover meet your information needs? This information you are reviewing, does it meet your information needs? Does this information answer the set research questions, the set research objectives? Is it in any way related to the problem that is being investigated? Then 2, does it provide basic or in-depth coverage? So, before you decide whether to review certain sources, whether to include certain materials into your work, you have to ask yourself those basic questions. The questions on accuracy, questions on authority, questions on objectivity, questions on currency, and then questions on coverage. If the answer is yes to all these questions, it means now the sources are authentic, and then you can go ahead and evaluate them. If, for example, the answer is no to accuracy, it is no to authority, and it is yes to objectivity, yes to currency, yes to coverage, still there is a question, because we want the answers to be yes for all of those five aspects. So that one is very, very important for a researcher. Because why we are doing this is because there is a lot of information on the internet, there is a lot of information on the web, but most of that information is not filtered. It is not information that is peer reviewed. So anybody can post anything, anybody can publish anything. So don't think that whatever you meet on the internet is authentic, and therefore you can cite it or you can include it in your study. So that is a point of caution. And as a researcher, you have to be very serious and follow this evaluation criteria. Now, what about evaluating websites? I have already mentioned that the web is a vast network of unfiltered information sources, and therefore you need some hints on deciding whether to include these sources or not to include these sources. First of all, you look for information about the author, and in this one, you ask yourself, who is this author? Who is this author? What about the site that is being used? Is it an authentic site? Is the author affiliated to a credible institution? Is the author affiliated to an accredited academic institution? So that one is very, very important. Then 2, see if the author or the webmaster provides an email address or contact information, so that he or she can be contacted for inquiries or for further information. So if you find some sources where you don't have any contact information, there is no email address, you don't see the institution the author is affiliated to, then you have to doubt that website. And most of the fake websites, they will actually not provide that information. So look for hints on authority in the URL or the internet address. For example, the top level domain tells you what type of institution the information comes from. If, for example, it is .com or /.co, the commercial site may be trying to sell a product. If it is .edu or .ac, then you will know that is an education institution, and usually it is reliable, but may not provide the personal, but you have to be careful about the personal web page or just a member of the institution. If, for example, it is www.mmu.ac.ug, then you know it is coming from an institution and therefore it can be trusted. .gov, that could be a government or an agent. That one also can be trusted. .net, then that is the network access provider. .org, that can be a non-profit organization. Or might not be, it may not be biased. So you also have to check if you're going to get information from websites. You have to check for these domains, and then the domains will tell you what kind of institution it is. And then that one can be a basis for you to trust it or not to trust it. So we can now go for a break. When we return, we shall just pick on from here. Thank you.